They told me not to come, said it would be better for everyone if I stayed away. It was my mother's birthday, and somehow I was the problem. I didn't argue, I didn't explain, I just showed up. And what happened next, no one saw coming. If you believe in quiet strength, second chances, and in the kind of justice that doesn't need to shout subscribe to the channel, because stories like this one, they aren't just told, they're felt. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 30 years old, and I co-founded one of the fastest-growing logistics AI companies on the West Coast. We're called Loggy Mind. Our core product uses machine learning to optimize real-time freight routes for major retailers and reduce carbon emissions and last-mile delivery. That means fewer empty trucks, faster deliveries, and millions in operational savings. I serve as the Chief Operating Officer, COO. And while I'm not the one writing the code anymore, I'm the one ensuring our clients trust us. Our product scales, and our employees stay inspired. I live in San Francisco, wear black blazers more often than I sleep, and have a minor addiction to Earl Grey lattes. I run 6:30 a.m., executive stand-ups, fly out for investor briefings, and still find time to mentor young women in STEM. On paper, I've made it. But none of that mattered last Friday when my father texted me this. Emily, it's best you sit this one out. Let's not make this about you. This he referred to was my mother's 60th birthday party, a family dinner at Delaney's, our town's only upscale restaurant in Ohio. A gathering of cousins, old friends, and church folk. Apparently, everyone had been invited. Everyone except me. The invitation thread was forwarded to me by Rachel, my younger sister. She didn't say much, just a casual. Did you get this too? I think Dad sent it from his church email. I scrolled through the list. Uncle John, Aunt Lydia, even our high school music teacher, not me. I called my father immediately. No answer. So I texted. Just saw the thread. Can I RSVP? I'd like to be there. 2 hours passed. Then came the reply. Emily, it's best you sit this one out. Let's not make this about you. I stared at my phone. Let's not make this about you. He had no idea how ironic that line was. I hadn't made anything about me since I left Ohio at 22, with a backpack and a half-finished CS degree. I hadn't asked for money, hadn't visited home more than twice a year, hadn't even corrected him when he told relatives I was doing some tech stuff in California. He thought I was still drifting, that I lived alone in a studio apartment, probably coding in some basement, struggling to make rent. He didn't know that last month I stood in a boardroom negotiating a Series B investment round that closed at $18 million. He didn't want to know. To him, success looked like my sister Rachel married 2 kids working part-time at the local bank. They lived 5 miles from our parents and went to church every Sunday. Her life fit the blueprint: safe, predictable, comprehensible. Mine didn't. And for that, I'd been cast as the difficult daughter, the black sheep, the one whose choices made family gatherings awkward. But here's the thing about being exiled long enough. You stopped needing the kingdom's validation. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't angry. I was curious. What exactly did my father think I would do to ruin a birthday party, wear pants, mention that women could lead companies pay the bill without asking? Or maybe he feared what others would see if I showed up. The daughter he'd dismissed now, standing on her own, without a husband or a father to speak on her behalf. The daughter who was no longer apologizing for being different, just exceptional. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rant. I went home, opened my laptop, and pulled up our quarterly ops report. I looked at the team photo from our last off-site. 46 employees, 30 of them women, half of them people of color, all of them thriving. My family might not have seen me, but I'd built a family that did. And none of them cared what church I went to or whether I changed my name when I got married. They cared that I showed up, listened, led with integrity, and delivered. I shut my laptop, poured a glass of wine, and whispered to no one in particular, I'm not the one missing out. But something inside me said the story wasn't over yet. And I was right. Because what my father didn't know, what none of them knew, was that someone else at that party would recognize me. And when he did, everything would change. I didn't respond to my father's message. I didn't need to. The silence between us had stretched for years. This was just another brick in the wall he'd been building since the day I packed my bags and refused the path he'd drawn for me. Marry a safe man, teach high school algebra, live 3 blocks down. Instead, I moved to San Francisco with $4 and $300 in my checking account and an obsession with optimizing systems. How people move, how goods move, how data moves. 10 years later, I run a team that designs predictive AI models for freight logistics. We use historical delivery data, real-time traffic patterns, and fuel price trends to reroute distribution networks on the fly. We've cut shipping costs for our clients by 23% and emissions by nearly 30%. But try explaining that to a man who still prints out emails. The Monday after that text, I had a full day of meetings, hiring reviews, client updates, a check-in with our newly expanded data science team. As I walked past the front desk, Marisol, our office manager, called out, "New onboarding package is ready. Your 110 is here, early Tyler Bennett." I froze. Bennett, Rachel's boyfriend, the one she called Ty, in that annoyingly saccharine voice during FaceTime calls. I hadn't made the connection when she texted about his new job. She'd said something vague: Ty's starting at a tech company next week. "Funny, I think it's yours." I hadn't replied. Now here he was, sitting nervously in our glass-walled lobby, clutching a company-issued laptop bag. He didn't recognize me, not yet. I was wearing heels my hair, in a French twist blazer, pressed conference badge from the AI supply chain forum, still clipped to my lapel. He looked like a Midwest transplant, polite button down, still ironing his jeans, trying not to sweat through his shirt. I stepped into the orientation room, clicked the slides on, and addressed the 5 new hires. "Welcome to Logimind. I'm Emily Carter, co-founder and COO. I'll walk you through what we do, how we do it, and why we expect nothing less than your full brain power." That's when he looked up, our eyes met, and something in his face shifted. Recognition, shock, then disbelief. To his credit, he recovered quickly, sat straighter, took notes, didn't ask any dumb questions, but I saw the flicker. Afterward, as the others filtered out for HR paperwork, he lingered. Miss Carter, Emily's fine," I said. "Unless you crash birthday parties, in which case ma'am might be safer." He smiled nervously. He had dimples, I realized, and a quick mind that didn't quite know what to do with itself. I had no idea. I mean, Rachel never said you were the Emily Carter. "You know this Emily Carter. She doesn't know," I said calmly. "Not really." He shifted his weight. "Is it going to be weird me working here? I mean, only if you make it weird." He exhaled like I'd lifted a mountain off his chest. "Okay, cool. I really wanted this job. You guys are doing amazing stuff." "We are," I said, "and I assume you're here because you want to build, not gossip." "Definitely." "Then welcome to the team." And that was that. But something about the moment lingered. It wasn't just that Rachel's boyfriend now worked for me. It was the way he looked at me, like I was someone worth respecting. And that was more than I could say about half my blood relatives. For the next few weeks, I barely saw him. He was placed under our logistics analytics division, reporting to Priya, one of our senior leads. From her notes, he was doing fine, smart, responsive, a bit green, but improving fast. Then, one evening, I saw him in the elevator as I was leaving. He hesitated before the doors closed. "I hope this isn't out of line, but can I say something?" I raised an eyebrow. "You just did." He laughed. "I guess I just want to say I admire how you carry yourself. Rachel's never really talked about your work, but it's clear people here look up to you. I think I get why now." I gave him a polite nod, but said nothing. Inside, though, I felt a subtle shift. For the first time in a long time, someone from that other world, the world of family dinners, Christmas cards, and narrow boxes, had seen me not as a disappointment or a warning sign, but as a leader. And it was about to get even more interesting because 2 days later, Rachel posted the birthday invitation publicly. No names, no tags, just a caption. "Can't wait to celebrate Mom's 60th this Saturday. Family is everything." I stared at the screen for a long time. And then I booked a flight. Tyler was quiet for the next few days. Professional, efficient, but quieter. I figured he was recalibrating. It's one thing to hear your girlfriend complain about her bossy older sister who moved to California and thinks she's better than us. It's another to realize that same sister runs the company, now signing your paychecks. I didn't take it personally. People like Tyler are raised to believe that power wears a necktie and speaks with a deep voice. When they meet a woman who commands respect without shouting, it short-circuits something. But to his credit, he adjusted quickly. The Friday of that same week, I held our monthly leadership sync. All team leads present. The topic was critical. We just discovered a subtle inefficiency in how two of our algorithms prioritized weather data versus route density in emergency rerouting. For most companies, it wouldn't even register. But we're not most companies. At Login, a Z4% drop in fleet efficiency meant tens of thousands in daily client losses. Our value wasn't in code, it was in the precision of our predictive models. I laid it out clearly on the board. What we're seeing is overfitting in urban clusters. Our AI too reliant on static congestion scores, not accounting for live detours. Priya, what's your team's current correction window? 4 minutes and 17 seconds. We need to cut that in half. I want a dynamic feedback loop with traffic signals by next sprint. Tyler, you ran the base model test last week, right? He looked startled to be called on in front of the leadership team. But he didn't freeze. Yes. And I noticed the feedback decay rate was higher in school zones. Might be because of the abrupt stop-and-go patterns. I think we can build a weighted adjustment to compensate. I gave him the faintest of nods. Good. Sketch it out with Priya. Get me a draft by Tuesday. The room moved on, but not before I saw the look on his face. It wasn't pride. It was realization. He was seeing it perhaps for the first time. Not just that I led this company, but that I understood it more deeply than anyone in the room. That I wasn't a face or a PR figurehead. I was the operating engine. Later that afternoon, I caught him in the kitchen, refilling his water bottle. He hesitated, then said softly, "I didn't know Rachel left out so much." I sipped my tea. People usually do, especially when they don't understand something. It's not just that. I think she resents that you left, but also that you succeeded in your own way without needing approval. Is that what she told you? He shrugged. She called you selfish, said you thought you were better than everyone. I think I used to believe that too. But now I see it's different. I met his eyes. Not cold, not warm, just steady. When people fear what they don't control, they call it arrogance. When they don't understand your choices, they call it betrayal. And when they can't keep up, they call you family, but only if you play along. He exhaled through his nose, then awkwardly changed the subject. I heard there's a birthday party this weekend, so I'm told. Are you going? I turned my gaze to the window, where the city skyline shimmered behind layers of light. I wasn't invited. But you'll go anyway, won't you? I smiled just slightly. Let's just say, if I do, I won't be the one crashing the party. He nodded, and I could see it written across his face, the internal conflict, the loyalty, the shifting perception. But I didn't need his allegiance. What I needed was a moment not for revenge, not even for recognition, just a single moment where the world that had tried to define me would be forced to confront the truth. That the girl they once dismissed had become the woman they now couldn't ignore. And that moment was coming sooner than anyone thought. The Facebook post went up Thursday morning. A smiling photo of my mother taken at some church fundraiser with a banner of balloons in the background and a caption that read, "Excited to celebrate our beautiful mom this Saturday, 60 years young and stronger than ever." Posted by Rachel. No tags, no mention of me. Just dozens of comments from family members. Can't wait. Aunt Deb is bringing her famous pie. All the cousins together again. I stared at the screen for a long minute. Then I checked the location. Delaney's, the same restaurant where I'd celebrated my high school graduation, the one with the white linen tablecloths, the maitre d', who wore cufflinks, and the dessert menu printed on cardstock. No RSVP from me. I booked my flight not out of spite, but because it was time. Time for them to see what I'd become. Not from a magazine feature or whispered anecdotes, but up close. And more importantly, time for me to stop hiding. Not everything needed to be a fight. Some truths didn't require confrontation. They just needed a room full of people and one sentence. I arrived in Ohio the morning of the party. The air smelled like freshly mowed lawns and wet bark mulch. I rented a black sedan, checked into a quiet hotel on the edge of town, and reviewed a few urgent Slack messages over breakfast. Then I carefully selected my outfit. A dark green crepe suit, minimalist gold earrings, one of our custom-designed company pins, worn not as a boast, but as a signature. I looked in the mirror. Not flashy, not aggressive, just undeniable. I arrived at Delaney's 15 minutes late. The hostess blinked when I gave her my name. "You're not on the list," but she glanced around there in the private dining room back left. I walked into the sound of laughter. There she was, my mother, sitting at the center of a long table, radiant in a blue silk blouse. My father beside her, proudly holding court. Rachel was seated to the right, hair curled just so, flanked by a wall of cousins. And then Tyler near the end of the table, quietly sipping from a water glass. The room stilled as people noticed me. A few awkward nods, a couple confused stares. Then my father leaned back in his chair. "Well," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "look who decided to show up after all." He said it like a joke, but the tension in the room was real. I ignored him, walked straight to my mother, placed a slim white envelope in her hand, and said, "Happy birthday, Mom. I hope it's as beautiful as you are." She looked stunned. "Open the envelope slowly." Inside 2 first-class tickets to Paris. Her mouth fell open. "Emily, you once said you'd never been. Now you will." She pressed her hand to her chest. Her voice shook. "I don't know what to say." My father scoffed. "Quite the performance. Still like making things about yourself, I see." Before I could respond, a voice rang out from the end of the table. Firm, clear. She didn't make this about herself. Everyone turned. It was Tyler. He stood, glass and hand eyes locked on my father. "She just gave your wife the most thoughtful gift I've ever seen." Then he turned to the room, voice rising a notch. "And by the way, for those of you who don't know, this is Emily Carter, co-founder and COO of Logimind." Now the room really fell silent. "That's right, the tech company I just joined. She's not just my boss, she's the reason I wanted the job in the first place." Rachel's fork dropped. My aunt blinked. My father turned a shade paler. "So maybe instead of making passive-aggressive comments," Tyler continued, "we could say, 'Thank you for coming,' or at the very least show some respect." Then he sat down. The moment hung in the air like smoke. I turned to my mother. "I won't stay long. Just wanted to see you smile." She reached up and squeezed my hand. "I'm glad you came." I looked around one last time. Some faces held awe, others confusion. 1 or 2 shame. Rachel looked away. And my father, he had nothing to say. I left the room in silence, my heels clicking softly on the tile. Not one word of argument, not one drop of rage, just clarity. Sometimes all it takes is one sentence from the right person at the right moment to tip the scales. I didn't expect anything after I left Delaine's. No dramatic exits, no phone calls, just the calm hush of knowing a moment had passed, and none of them would ever be able to unsee it. That night, back in my hotel room, I kicked off my heels, ordered a Cobb salad from room service, and opened my laptop. The Q2 reports were solid. Investor notes were clear. There was a LinkedIn message from a logistics VP at Amazon asking for a coffee next week. I replied yes. The world kept turning, but something in me had shifted. I'd gone into that party expecting at best to make peace with my own rejection. Instead, I'd witnessed a kind of emotional earthquake, a public reckoning, but also a subtle rebalancing. The next morning, my phone buzzed. "Mom." A text. "Emily, can I see you, just us?" I sent the address of my hotel. She arrived an hour later, holding a small Tupperware container of lemon bars, her signature. She looked around the room like she was seeing my life for the first time. "You always liked clean spaces," she said softly. "And you always liked sugar," I replied. She smiled. Then her face turned serious. "I didn't know about Paris or the company, or any of it. because no one asked. I said simply, I'm asking now. So I told her about the years of ramen noodles and failed prototypes, about the first round of angel funding, the sleepless nights debugging server errors, the thrill of onboarding our first big client, about leading a team that didn't just admire me, but trusted me. She listened not with the glazed politeness of someone waiting for a turn to speak, but with eyes that glistened. I'm sorry, she said finally. We didn't give you room to bloom. We just tried to keep you small so we could understand you. It's okay. No, she shook her head. It's not, but I'm trying to do better. We sat there for a while. She asked if she could visit San Francisco. I said, yes. We didn't talk about Dad, but when she left, she turned at the door. He's not as cold as he pretends. He just doesn't know how to admit he's wrong. I nodded, but said nothing, because sometimes silence speaks more than forgiveness. The next unexpected call came from Rachel. A week later, I was back in the office reviewing UI wireframes when her name flashed on my screen. I debated ignoring it, then picked up. Hi, she said quickly. I'm not sure why I'm calling. Or maybe I do. Tyler told you he didn't have to. Everyone saw. But it wasn't the moment that got me. It's what happened after. I stayed quiet. He couldn't stop talking about you, about how prepared you are, how calm, how you lead. Her voice cracked, and I realized I've never seen you that way. I didn't want to, because if you were strong and I resented you, that made me small. I swallowed. You're not small, Rachel. You're just still figuring things out. We all are. I'm sorry I never asked about your life. I'm sorry I made it easy for you not to. She exhaled sharply, like something heavy had been released. Mom wants to come visit you. I think I do too. You're welcome, both of you. Before she hung up, she said something I didn't expect. I'm proud of you, Emily. Not just for being successful, but for not making me feel worse about not being you. That night, I took out the envelope from my carry-on, the one I hadn't opened yet, from Dad. It had been waiting for me at the hotel desk when I checked out. Handwritten no return address inside one page. Emily, and you turned out different than I imagined. And maybe better. Anne and I don't know how to apologize for all the ways I underestimated you. Maybe I don't deserve to. But your mother tells me you're building something real. And I believe her. You always had a stubbornness. I mistook it for rebellion. And turns out it was Vision-Dar and Dad. No signature, no warmth, but also no denial. And that was enough, because some victories don't need trophies. They just need truth. That summer, I bought my first home in Moraine County, a sun-drenched modern build tucked between redwoods with a view of the bay and enough space to host both colleagues and quiet. On the day I moved in, my team surprised me with a gift, a framed canvas print of a quote I'd once said during a late-night strategy session. Half laughing, half serious, build so well, they can't look away. It hung now in my study, just above a smaller frame. Tyler's words scribbled on a sticky note someone had saved from that unforgettable dinner. She's my boss. I kept them both as reminders, not of what I'd proven to others, but of what I'd proven to myself. That I didn't have to become loud to be heard, didn't have to win by destroying others, didn't need permission to be powerful. 5 years after that birthday, my mother turned 65. This time, the party was at my house. The patio was lit with fairy lights. My chef made her favorite crab cakes. The champagne was chilled. Rachel brought the cake. Tyler brought a slideshow of family photos. And my father, he came. He didn't say much at first, just sat quietly in the corner watching. Then, as the evening wound down and people drifted inside, he approached me on the deck, hands in his pockets, eyes squinting into the dusk. You built something, he said. Something real. I said nothing. He looked at me, not the way he used to, searching for flaws, but as if seeing a stranger he was finally willing to know. I was afraid he admitted, afraid you'd outgrow us. And you did. But you didn't leave us behind. We pushed you out. And still, you built a place we could return to. He reached into his coat pocket and handed me a worn envelope. Inside, a folded photo, me age 10, building a cardboard company out of shoeboxes and markers in the garage. I'd named it Smart Moves Inc. He'd written on the back, Turns out you always knew. For the first time in my life, I hugged my father, not as a daughter needing something, but as a woman who had everything she needed. That night, I stood in my living room, surrounded by laughter, wine glasses, clinking, and people I loved. And I realized the story that began with, "Don't make this about you," had ended with everyone coming together. Because I made room for myself on my terms. I didn't get revenge by being cruel. I got it by being undeniable. And I didn't just reclaim my place in the family. I redefined what family meant. Not those who love you only when you conform, but those who find their way back when you stand your ground with grace. That's the revenge that lasts. That's the legacy that lives. And that's how the girl they tried to quiet became the woman they now celebrate. Quietly, fiercely, unapologetically full circle. Where are you watching from? I'd love to know what part of the world you're in and whether this story resonated with your own journey. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Your words matter more than you think. And if you enjoy stories like this, quiet, powerful, and full of emotional justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There's so much more coming your way. Thank you truly for spending your time with me today. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and never forget your story is still being written.